Well, hello and a very warm welcome to Friday Live. It's 3 o'clock again on Friday. Obviously, the clue's in the title, Friday Live. And today I'm going to be joined by a guy who I met fairly recently, actually, on an online webinar. And that's Rob Jones from RBJ. Have I got that right? Or RFJ?
RJF.
RJF, yeah. God, blimey. I knew I was going to get that wrong. I always get those things wrong. So we're going to have a chat today about business, about accounting, about raising finance and all sorts of lovely stuff. So what I'll start by doing is playing the intro, which will give people a chance to get in, and then we'll crack on, get with Rob and get some useful insight, information, ideas and inspiration. He doesn't know it yet, but that's what he's going to provide us with. Here we go. Okay, so as I say, a very warm welcome to Friday Live with me, Phil Crowshaw, and we're live streaming concurrently on Facebook, on YouTube, and of course, on good old LinkedIn. So as I said, I'm delighted today to be joined by Rob Jones. So you'll do a lot better job than introducing yourself than I will, Rob, and you'll probably get even your company name right, which I couldn't even manage that. So we're not on a very good start, are we? So Rob, welcome to the show. Tell us about yourself and what it is you do.
Hi, Phil. Yeah, no worries. So I'm a qualified chartered accountant by trade. So I worked overseas for quite a while after I qualified about 15, 16 years ago. And I came back, when we come back to the UK, I was doing quite a bit of portfolio finance director work, working with VCs and private equity funds. And I had a few other businesses as well, sort of my own that I'd started. And part of my work was getting involved in quite a lot of investments into sort of seed investments into early stage startup businesses. And aside from everything else I was doing, I was coming across a lot of business owners and founders, and I was kind of finding that there was a common theme that amongst some of the issues that they would have in regards to finance. So, they would pitch a bit like the Dragon's Den, and the TV program that you get, and you get the founder, and everyone sort of gets really excited, thinks it's a brilliant business, and then when we start drilling into the numbers, they get a bit lost, and everyone loses confidence, and am I going to give my money to this person if he doesn't understand, what his break-even point is, how many users he needs to subscribe to his platform, or how many products, units do they need to sell. So when I spoke to these guys sort of after these events and got to know them, and they said, look, Rob, it's the finance stuff I struggle on because I can't really find the support. I've got a business, I've got to do my accounts, taxes and things like that. I've got to do that by law, but the bigger boys are just not that interested. They don't really see value in startups because I think a lot of them are thinking, how we're going to get paid if they've got no money. And then they'll go to the high street accountant, which do a great job on the compliance, will tick every box. But in terms of offering any sort of support and advice on how to pitch, how to get investor ready, where to go for funds, what tax incentives that you could have that could make you more attractive or get you cash into your business, and forecasting models, or just generally running. I mean, I've had businesses, some have failed and some have done really well. I sold a finance recruitment business I had a couple of years ago, which then is what led me to start doing this, because it freed me up to be able to do RJF, which I thought, well, I can do all the compliance work, and I'm accountant qualified by trade. But the added value really is giving that support and advice, and not sort of putting it on the clock and charging for every phone call and every single meeting, and actually giving real advice as well, because I've been in their shoes, and that's why I set up RJF, really, to work with startups and early stage businesses to I kind of call it keep you out of jail services, which is just compliance stuff, and keep the tax man happy. But accountancy, that's that side of it. That's not really the most interesting side. The interesting side is advising and helping to grow, and also spotting opportunities for for myself to see if there's good opportunity for seed investment. But we're looking with growth, so we want to grow with the business. And my sort of ethos behind it was basically, if I was going to sit here and charge you a few grand to build a business model and give you advice and charge you every call, you probably haven't got it, so you're not going to come to me. But if I can help you get your investment, if that's one thing you're looking for, then you grow, and you grow with us, and you'll get more money to pay me more as the business grows. So there's more of I had a long term, and the beauty of it is I don't have a boss, or I've got huge overheads, because I'm not dissing the big firms, but they've got big overheads. They've got partners that maybe watch what time people are spending on, and why have you just give that client an hour free? I don't have any of that. And the team that I've got, I've got a few people who work for me, that they're not under that cost. They're always told, reply to every client. We have KPIs and how fast they reply to them, and speaking to them. They don't need my permission at all, if they need any help or anything like that. So I set that up 3 years ago. Now we're in the third year, and we're helping over 150 businesses. And some who were with us at the start have grown into multi-million-pound businesses, and we've got some now that are pre-revenue, not even doing anything, but majority are sort of between 250, 500,000 turnover businesses that are no more than 2 or 3 years old.
Amazing, brilliant, and so refreshing actually to hear an accountant talking like that. It does stand out. I mean, you've identified it for yourself, but it does stand out the fact that you're talking like, in essence, you're talking like an entrepreneur. You're talking like a small business owner rather than a bean counter, and it does stand out a lot. And I guess that's how you're positioning yourself, and part of the difference in the market, which I guess is a challenge sometimes, is it? Because there's so many accountants, just like there are, I suppose, legal people. There's so many. Is it really important to find that differentiation?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of good accounts. There's a lot of accounts that are similar size. I think when I speak to people, from what I mean, I don't do it by design. I just speak like that because I've had my own businesses. Like I said, I've had some that have failed, so not everything's been a success, and I've had some which have been a success. So when the entrepreneurs, that I know what they're going through, I know what they've been through, and when they've got difficult times, I know that. Whereas a lot of the other firms, they've got their own accountancy firm, but they've never been in those business owners' shoes, so they don't really relate, or they can't do. They can do it from a book, and they maybe can do it from experience, and they'll provide a good service. But when it comes down to sort of being on the front line, so to speak, I mean, that really shone last year, with COVID, because that scared the hell out of a lot of people. And, we had clients, where do we go for funding? How do we manage this? And what about cash flow? And so, I did a lot, and I was fairly busy then. But, we didn't charge for furlough claims, and doing that as a help, and helping people get loans, the C-bill loans, and doing forecasts and cash flow. Quite a lot of clients I'd sit down to them who didn't really pay for our cash flow service at the beginning as a fee, but I said, we just did it for them. We just did it and give them, and helping them, sort of giving them tips on collecting debt. And I mean, I've been through a recession, 2007, 8, 9. I was FD for a big PLC that did get hit, and so I learned a lot that how they managed it and how they got through it, and that was a good experience because that the PLC, you'd expect them to have good processes and good and very expensive advisors and helping to get through that, and I learned a hell of a lot from that, and that all sort of came to the fore in the last 18 months with COVID, which we passed on to clients, and how just simple things on sort of you think, do you think about that, but just new customer, do a credit check on them before you give them credit. Just advising a client to do that. Oh, how do we do that? Where do we do that? Well, I've got access to a database that I can do that. I can do quick credit checks for free for you, and did that on a couple of clients who were looking to go into sort of big wholesale contracts during COVID and making sure they get paid, giving them on advice how to sort of set up that commercial contract to make sure that they don't expose themselves and they match payment terms with the wholesaler and the manufacturer, and all that sort of thing, which as an entrepreneur, it's about, and a business owner, it's a very lonely world, and often you find that they've got a good idea and they're great at maybe sort of promoting that idea, but it's running a business that's different, and a lot of them won't know that, and that's where I don't profess to be the oracle of everything, but I've got a decent amount of experience that can help. And if I don't know anything, I'll go and find it, or I can speak to people that will, because I've got a decent network. And if I need to find elsewhere, I can find support from people that I know. And that's really why I think we're very different from anyone else.
Yeah, well, it's very true. It's absolutely very true. And quite funnily enough, I do the same thing. And as you know, I'm very much in the business development, sales and marketing, innovation type area. And then when somebody asks me about finance and cash flow, I go, you need to speak to Rob, or I do now. Now I know. I know you. So yeah, I get that totally. Do you find that with the experience that you've got and the experience you've had, when you first meet somebody in that first couple of hours and they're looking for finance and looking to really make the business happen or move it forward, do you find that are your instincts now at a level where you've got a reasonable idea on a scale of 1 to 10 that whether they've got a chance or not? Does that make sense?
It does, yeah, and often they don't like to hear it if I think it's low. But I don't, if it is low, I'm always of the type of person that, well, it's not, if there is a negative comment, there's got to be a positive or something productive. But so there's no point to me saying, no, you haven't got a chance. The business plan's rubbish or whatever. It's like, I don't think that's great, but if you thought about this or do this, it might give you a better chance. So you can sort of gauge that quite quickly. And I remember some of the things that stand out when you do is really when they tell you the idea and it's so complex that I don't understand it. I'm saying, look, if you're making it too complex for me, investors like it simple. And if I don't get it, I don't profess to be the smartest person in the world, but if I'm not understanding it, you're trying to get to invest. I mean, I know, some real well-known Manchester, Northwest, very wealthy people who invest. And there was one that I used to do a bit of work with, and he would literally get probably about 100 pitch decks a week. And he would only look at the first 2 pages of them. So he could have like 30 pages. If he didn't get it by the second page, he just went in the bin.
There's that kind of, I suppose it's a mixture of naivety, delusion, which I can say now because I'm old and bald. But back in the day, I was the same, probably the deluded young guy and the naive young guy myself in the past. And I know I was one of the things I was trying to do back in the day. I think I told you about the Experts Online TV channel I set up. I think I told you about that. And before that, though, the forerunner to that was trying to get 5 million quid to do a channel on Sky TV.
Right.
And I brought, the first thing I realized was that nobody was going to give me any money. but they might give me money if I had a team around me who actually knew a lot about television.
Yeah.
So I brought a great team in around me who bought into the concept. But at the end of the day, it was still a very bold, a very ambitious, with a very ambitious project. And when I look back now, and I had a cracking business plan and everything, but when I look back now, it was driven more by a dream than anything else. So do you find that people come along with the dream to the point where it's almost like the dream is everything, and then, you know, a week on Tuesday I'm going to be knocking Mark Zuckerberg off his pitch, or I'm going to be knocking Michelle Moan off Dragon's Den, or whatever it is? Is there a kind of any issues around dreaming versus realism?
I suppose there is, because, you know, we're all sort of told to think big, you know, either go big or do nothing.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's a particularly bad thing, to be honest. You know, where realism comes in is really, you know, if you're thinking of a product and service, like if you're thinking, right, I'm going to build the next Facebook, well, you're not. You know, Facebook is there, and probably 1 million people have tried to do that anyway. So there is an element that, but I've never discouraged to not think big. You know, think if you think you can do it, then just go for it. I always remember someone used to say to me, you know, if you aim high enough, you're going to hit some height. So, you know, you might not get to the top, but you might get a third of the way there, high, you know, half the way, 3/4, you'll get there. So, you know, there's no bad thing in not hitting right at the top. But if you're aiming mid tier or low tier, more than likely you're going to hit lower than that. So, you know, go big.
Yeah, and I guess nowadays it's possible to start and set up a business relatively easy compared with, I don't know, what, 50 years ago, where if you wanted to start a business, you probably had to start off with a factory and £1 million from Great Uncle Bulgaria or whoever.
Yeah.
What sort of percentage would you say, just a gut feel, I guess, as to how many of the business ideas now are almost like tech based? Versus what you might call traditional based? Is it 50-50, or is there a lot more tech based stuff around now?
I mean, personally, from my own experience and the clients we've got, majority of tech, e-commerce. I mean, that's the wonderful thing about the web. That's spawned a lot of businesses and startups. It's, you know, not just being a web-based business, but being able to sort of help with marketing and getting your business out there, be it whatever that is, if it's a service-based business, if it's a product or anything like that. The web has helped that. So, I mean, in terms of our client base, I'd say probably about 70%, probably even more than that. If I think, which I mean, depends what you define as tech. But in terms of being web-based and using the internet as a forum for their, sorry, not as a channel for their business, you know, 98% of them do that. In terms of tech businesses, purely tech, you know, maybe SaaS or some sort of online platform or some sort of online technology which has been developed, probably 75-80% of businesses are in that. Because as you said, it's very easy to start a business now with the World Wide Web. And a majority of businesses are, I've got an idea for an app, or I've got an idea for a SaaS platform. For me, I don't see a lot of I've got an invention to maybe improve someone's life, or a product, or, you know, something that's new. It's very much, it already exists there and I can sell it on e-com, or we do a tech business or an app which then helps. But in terms of like a sort of old school inventions, or, you know, something like that, or setting up I've not seen a lot, but they're quite intensive cash wise, aren't they? I mean, where our new office is here in Alderley Park, where AstraZeneca used to be, there's a lot of tech and biomed businesses, and there's lots of things happening here, and they're a lot of startups, but, you know, that they're very knowledge intensive and very cash intensive and have quite a lot of backers. It's either institutional universities or big sort of pharma companies like AstraZeneca that will pump a lot of money into them to do those type of things. But I think in the last, we wouldn't even say since the 20 years, maybe since the web really sort of took off. I'd probably say maybe the last 5, 6, 7, probably the last decade, seen a lot going through in terms of trying to get start up a business being through the web. I mean, I've got people just like Amazon sellers giving up their the day job, which might be maybe a professional job or whatever they did to study at uni, and one's selling like baby backpacks through Amazon. He's doing like nearly 90,000 a month through it on his own.
Can't knock that, can you?
Through the website. And there was one that I know that did a website that reviewed bed mattresses. Sold the website for £1.5 million when he was like 20 odd.
Oh, fantastic.
So,
fantastic.
Yeah.
And do you find that one of the things I've noticed is that with some tech businesses, and I'm saying tech businesses, you could argue it's others, but where do you think that they spend a bit too much time and money on the actual product and then end up without enough money to market it at the end of it?
Yeah. It's interesting. I had a conversation with a potential client this morning about that very thing. And I was saying to him, you're never going to get it perfect. You've got to have it ready there and launch it as it is. And I said to him, you look at Apple as an example. That was their ethos. They knew that their iPhone wasn't 100% perfect to release, but if they were waiting to release it till it's 100% perfect, they'd never release it. So they release it and it's got bugs and it had bugs and they fix it and they update it and everything like that. But you do get, you can see that where it's just it's not quite ready. It doesn't look right. It just and it's like, just get it out there. It's never going to be perfect, and you've just got to sort of deal with that. And if it and you manage it the way like Apple do. People still buy Apple products even though they're not perfect because the way they do it, they have a good customer service and that's the way they sort of manage to keep you on board, don't they? So yeah, I see that a lot, that you can actually just focus so much on trying to get the perfect product, the perfect system, the perfect platform that that money that you started out with can go, and then you're like, right, I've got it, but I've got nothing left to market it, and also there's a risk of, well, it's outdated already and something else is better.
Of course, yeah. Yeah, no, of course.
So it's a good balance. It's getting the right balance, but
it is balance, isn't it? Yeah, you've got because obviously you've got to get it. It's got. I always say it has to be good enough, is what I kind of tend to say. It has to be good enough. But sometimes I don't eat my own dog food, as I think I mentioned to you that I've just started a radio station that brings together learning and development and music, I have put it live, but I'm not happy with it. And I'm not a perfectionist, but I keep thinking, oh, yeah, that's not quite right, and I need to add that, and I need to do that. So I keep, it's kind of pre-launch. If you want to listen, it's pre-launch, and that's the way I guess to get around it. And the other one, of course, with tech is just put beta on it.
Yeah.
It's in beta, which basically means if there's fine problems, then you'd expect it because we're in beta testing. So
yeah,
it's normal. Brilliant. Okay. So just talking a little bit about the pandemic then. Where do you start with that one? What have you noticed about the pandemic in terms of new startups, new planned startups, challenges in businesses? Have you come across businesses who were, shall we say, maybe even a little bit can't think of the word, complacent, for example, who've suddenly found themselves in, shall we say, some hot water? You mentioned before about the 2008, 2009 problems that some people will recall, where we had the bank collapses and such like. And I know certainly as an individual, I learned from that because I was a consultant at the time. I was living down south. I was a consultant and I was probably a bit complacent, had some decent clients. And then suddenly, literally within 3 or 4 days, they all said, Phil, we've been told we've got to stop spending.
Yeah.
Can't do it. Sorry, blah, blah, blah. And what that taught me was prepare for your rainy days. So when this happened, I was in a much better position because I've got the scars from 2008, which I think you intimated when you mentioned it.
Yeah.
So what's your general thoughts on business and the pandemic situation and the impact?
Yeah, it shook a lot of people up. I think from personal experience and with clients, I mean, going back, it's not that I wasn't wise to see that this was going to happen, but with clients, whenever we're working with them, we're always, like I say, go back to that point. I'm not just doing the books and the compliance. I'm, giving them advice, helping them, producing content for them, and so, like the things that we talk about is, so for example, we have quite a lot of digital marketing companies, and we used to say, have a good mix, good concentration of clients. Don't be reliant on just one client. Look at improving cash flow and credit, trying to put at least 6, if you can't do 12 months worth of overheads in the bank, at least try and do 6, and move when you get paid and you got VAT, put the 20% VAT away, so it's just I call it a crown account, and just leave it there and don't touch it, and it's not yours, and then when the VAT bill comes, you got no. So all these sort of tips and things that we were given, and some people took it on and some people didn't. And then when all this happened, you sort of saw actually people who took it on, yeah, they got through it. It was, to quote Fergie, squeaky bum time. But they dealt with it. They were using that reserve. Some didn't even need any help, like the furlough or the bounce back loans. They got through okay. Some took that on just as a bit of a risk and then paid it back when they didn't need it. So they did well. And then the ones that didn't really listen to that advice were then panicking and like, oh crap, I wish I would have listened to you. Yeah, that makes sense now, Rob. Now I've seen it. It makes sense why, I've got 20 clients, but, three quarters of my income comes from one, and he pulled the plug. So now I know that I've got to get that decent mix of clients, and so all those things that we were giving advice for, like I say, the ones, and that shook a lot of people up, and to sort of realise, right, yeah, I do, it's not about just spending every single penny that I've got in the business and looking to conquer the world straight away by, right, I've got 20 grand in the bank, I'll just blow it on marketing and see what sticks. It's like, no. And I do see it, a lot of don't put any money away for rainy days and savings. I don't know if that's just in the personal lives as well. You see it, a lot of people maybe do that, just blow every single penny that they earn. But that sort of having that more kind of consciousness of, actually, I've seen what's happened now, and I got through it, thankfully, but I don't ever want to go through that again. And now you sort of see people setting up crown accounts and putting the VAT away and stuff like that, and dealing with it. So yeah, I think it shook a lot of them up. In terms of startups, there was, I can't quote the stat accurately, but I think recently, because we work with a lot of startups, so some of our marketing, we look for databases where people start companies, and the database people were saying, like, I think sort of not long ago, in 2 days, there was like 20,000 new companies on Companies House, just people starting up. And I think why that's happening, and from people I'm speaking to and sort of new clients that were coming on, they've had jobs and been let go, or they've been on furlough and not doing anything. And it's kind of given time to think about, well, actually, I can work for a moment. That idea that I've always had in my head, I've got the time to do it now, I might as well do it. And that, you can see a lot of that. And I'm seeing a lot of that come through, people suddenly think, maybe we're in white collar job, professional jobs, 9 to 5, and doing that, and then they've lost it, or it's been at risk, or hours cut, or whatever. And then they've sort of, people are resilient, aren't they? They sort of, they'll do what they need to do, but then they've got these ideas, and then they start. So I've seen quite a few of those start, coming through now, saying, oh, I've had this idea, I wanted to do this now, and now I might as well do it because I've not got a job.
Yeah, exactly. I've got a question actually from Sandra, and Sandra says that she's doing a business plan for the bank for a new business. What main things should I be including in the business plan?
So this will be for a loan from the bank. I mean, main things are sort of understanding. It's not just about I'll come on to the numbers side of things, what you need to show, but in that business plan, one of the key things is whatever you're choosing to do, what products or service, that you actually in the plan explain the market for it really well, because banks are a bit different when you're doing business plans, because banks can be a bit kind of, computer says no kind of thing, and they don't really look at it from, maybe an entrepreneurial investor or anything, but still the same principles could apply in terms of the way you would lay out your plan. And I think, explaining the market clearly and why, what you're doing, what solution you've got, you lay often, present the market, present the problem, and then present the solution. They're the three, the other way around. Present the problem, present the solution, and then the market for that solution. Because there might be a problem and it might be a solution, but if it's a very small market, well, it might not attract anyone. But if it's a problem and you've got the solution, it's a big market, then that will be, very attractive. So the banks, I've not really dealt with sort of banks and what they look at, because I think, like I say, mainly they will go through a computer system, and it's not really entrepreneurial people looking at it or investors. But some of the principles could help in putting that plan together. So in terms of numbers, they're going to want well, I know banks will want this for sure, with the 3 financial statements, your profit and loss, your balance sheet, and a forecast cash flow. And in those financials, it's good to set realistic targets and realistic scenarios. I've seen a lot of spreadsheet millionaires, when they do that classic hockey curve, by year 3, if you give me £100,000 loan, by year 3, I'll be turning over £20 million. So, it's got to be realistic, showing things like I mentioned at the beginning, sort of, a lot of people don't, when we're speaking to these entrepreneurs and founders, and understand some terminology, but break even's a key thing that you don't see a lot. I've seen it in even some, experienced people that don't talk about break even. I'm like, well, no matter if I'm lending you money as a bank or if I'm looking at investing, I need to know how long it's going to be before you turn a profit. And if you don't know how many products, how many units you need to sell, how many users you need to subscribe on the platform, how many customers you need before you can cover your overheads, and if you go into the bank, there's going to be the loan payment and interest, you've got to know that, in terms of how long it's going to be before you're not relying on the money from the bank to repay the loan, the actual business is generating. That's all key in the cash flow forecast to have. So to know those figures. And the bank will also look to see affordability, to sort of see when the business can start paying that loan back. And I think what is important is to do some scenario analysis. Again, you don't really see this, you'll just get one document which says these are the numbers, this is how much money I expect to make, and these are overheads. But I think it helps with the banks with the checks, is knowing that, well, what happens if you have a 10% drop? What happens if your costs go up by 5%? What happens if there's change in legislation in whatever area you're doing, and the impact maybe of Brexit and all this sort of thing, having different scenarios. And that's what when we're building a plan for someone, we'll always have scenario analysis. I'm not brilliant on Excel, I'm all right with it, but I have someone who's a real geek on it, and they can do all that. And I think that's important to show to the bank, because it also shows that you've thought a lot about, okay, what's the impact if something happens, and if the business still works, if there's a 10% drop, because the bank are not really interested in how much profit you're going to make. I know it sounds odd, but they're not really interested in, how brilliant your product is, or how brilliant your service is, or if it's going to make you a millionaire. They just want to know, are you going to be able to pay back the loan? And that's all they're interested in. And so having that scenario analysis shows that you've really thought about what the impact of maybe a drop or an increase in costs and all that, and does the business still support the repayment of that loan.
Do you think there's any business plan produced in the last 5 years that had what happens if there's a pandemic in their risk assessments?
No.
I don't think there probably was there?
No.
But the principles are the same, though, aren't they? They I call them usually Exocet missiles. and they can fly in from anywhere. And like, is it fair to say that it's really just, as much as anything else, nobody's got a crystal ball or a Nostradamus, but it's about saying that you understand how things can change, and you understand
it's about
that keeping an eye on it is important.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, no business plan is going to say, well, what if an asteroid hits America? What impact that's going to have on me? Because that's just going to be devastating, and even something like extremes of COVID, I'm not seeing business plans now saying, well, what's the effect if we have another global pandemic? Because that's just crazy. You can't do that. And that kind of affects everything. It's just more those subtle changes, what happens if the marketing doesn't work and it doesn't generate that much traffic to my website, if you've got an e-commerce business, and what happens if something happens in the Facebook algorithm? That means that happened recently. A lot of companies were really hit by that e-commerce. When I've got I sold it now, but an e-commerce fashion business, and that really hurt with the
massive,
way,
the algorithm
iOS,
change,
with the app tracking and tracking your, because you can opt out now of the apps tracking you where you've been and all that sort of stuff. So, in the plan, it's just factoring, well, okay, well, if I have a 10% drop in traffic, and how does that affect my business? Does it show that I can still pay my bank loan? Yeah, okay, well, that's good. What if it's 20%? I wouldn't say, oh, let's show a 50% drop, because if it's a 50% drop, that's something major has happened, and that's completely out of your control, and there's nothing you can do about that. But, in terms of a 10%, 5%, that they're the kind of margins we're talking about when we do the plan.
Yeah, well, I think, as I say, I think it's just demonstrating that you are generally aware and not just going off on this blind dream that. Do you ever? Have you ever come across? Sorry, what?
The banks will do that themselves. They will do their own scenario analysis as well.
Do you ever have you ever come across a situation? Because I know somebody who has, and it was usually young people, and a young person's had some first early finance investment, and when they're asked, okay, talk me through how you've spent the money, and then they say, well, I got this BMW when I first got the money. Do you ever come across those situations where there's a bit of, maybe I suppose it's touching on a bit of naivety again, and does it make you nervous if they've splashed out on a posh office or an ego spend, I suppose is what I'm saying?
Yeah, you can see, you do see. I have heard of it. I've not seen anyone do that, but it's interesting. There was one that I heard, and he did a podcast. I mean, they were a successful business now, but I remember when he started, and he was saying that, and he was in professional services, and they got a little bit of money, or he got some credit or something like that, a credit card that had about 10k, and his first purchase was a Rolex watch. And he got that, and he said he got that because he thought when he met clients, it would make him look more successful, and maybe perception and all that sort of nonsense.
Yeah, but it's that you've probably heard the discussion before. I've said to people before now that be very nervous if it's a business that you're working with and they've got a marble statue in the reception area that's about 150 grand. Start getting nervous because you're paying for that crap. Yeah, because that's true, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, like I said, no one in terms of clients we've got businesses, they've all been pretty frugal, but I have heard people do, like that's the example I just said there. And there was another one. What did he put? Again, it was a business that was generating cash. I mean, eventually went bust, but I think he put a Porsche through the books, and he was like saying, well, it's when I drive up to customers, they know that we're successful. And I said, to be honest, mate, if you drove up in a Porsche in the car park there, I think you're charging me too much.
Exactly. But it's interesting, isn't it, how things have changed and are changing. I mean, obviously, I've been familiar with Zoom for a long time because I've been using it for many, many years, actually, for video interviews as part of the work I do. And but as I've said to quite a few people, that back in the day, if I mentioned Zoom, people thought it was a nice lolly. But do you think that now, there's that debate, or I've had the debate even in my own head in the past, because I was familiar with Zoom and I knew the efficiency of it. But I've been very nervous about suggesting a Zoom conversation with somebody, particularly if it's further afield, like, you know, Birmingham or you know, Cumbria or Newcastle, whatever. I'd have been very nervous about suggesting it in the past before the pandemic, because I'd have been nervous that they would judge that I was being lazy, couldn't be bothered, wasn't committed.
Yeah.
Do you think that might have changed now, Rob, in your opinion?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I was of the same, you know, if someone wanted a Zoom meeting, or I was kind of that old school, it's better to see the eyes of someone in person and shake the hand, and that's how you do business, and that's how you deal with it. And people were the same. Yeah, you know, it was about sort of meeting and shaking hands, and that's how, you know, and having the crack together, and that's how you sort of did business. But because I never used Zoom or Teams before the pandemic, I never used video calls. Then when we were forced to do it, you know, I was like, and then when we were out of lockdown, you know, this is all from a personal experience, like, well, this is really efficient, because I can have about 4 or 5 meetings in a day. Whereas if this was, you know, face to face, it'd be maximum of 1 or 2, absolutely knackered of driving around. Then you get home late, 7, 8 at night, and then you've got to go through your notes and follow up or catch up on emails that are during the day. So it then became a very long day for 2 meetings. And now with these, you know, I mean, I've already had 3 meetings this morning before this on Zoom. You know, I would never have that. And, you know, there were potential clients, and 2 signed up now today. So, you know, that would have taken a lot longer. And I think it's just because other people are used to it now. So it's the norm. I mean, you do get, I mean, I've got, before this live stream, I've just had an email from a guy who we met during the pandemic on the Zoom, and he just said, oh, you know, I'd prefer to meet, you know, let's meet up in Manchester and have a beer, and we'll do that, and, you know, the good old fashioned way. So I was like, yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind doing that. You do miss it.
Yeah.
But I think it's just about balancing it now. It's not unusual. Like I say, if you get any requests now to do a Zoom, if I get a request, I think, oh, thank goodness I don't need to go out. I can still do some of the work. So it's making things a lot more efficient. A hell of a lot more. You're getting a lot more done in a shorter space of time. So, you know, I've been getting home normal hours now and things like that, which has done because of the technology. So I don't think it's got that stigma now. Everyone is used to, let's have a Zoom call, let's have a Teams call, let's do it online.
Yeah, of course. And we're actually and absolutely, and we're actually contributing to saving the planet a little bit as well, aren't we? So there's a very good reason. There's even green reasons why it doesn't make sense. I always think that it's a bit like the classic work from home, work from the office. I think the hybrid is always the best options. So, you know, you can meet with, I've done this with a few clients where I've met them in person. We've had a coffee and a good chat and got to know each other a bit better. And then once that's been, I suppose what you might call cemented, then you can carry on, or the next one is on Zoom, but you feel you've broken bread with the person. And of course, we're going to be working together. And just before we came on air, we said, didn't we, that we'll actually meet up.
Yeah.
So I'll say that I'll warn you now, because it's quite funny, because I've obviously had a huge amount of Zoom meetings like everybody else. And everybody, because I'm only 5'5", and everybody always says, especially Northerners, who because we just say it as it is, you're a lot shorter than I expected. So the great thing is now, Rob, is you won't be shocked.
No, okay.
You can still say it if you like.
Yeah,
I've got broad shoulders, but you won't be shocked.
Well, the bit I've said, you know, you save, you know, about the environment and saving costs and all that sort of stuff. You know, saving on trousers.
Yeah, exactly. Brilliant. Okay, so what do you going to put you on the spot a little bit, really, in terms of you're now going to wear the cap of Nostradamus. What do you think things are going to be like in the next 12 months? Everybody's uncertain, aren't they? So particularly, I guess, one of the things that I'm intrigued about, which I mentioned before we came on air briefly, is people getting together again in what I would call training classes. And I suppose networking's another big one, isn't it? I used to do tons, as perhaps you did in Manchester. Have you got a feel? Do you think it'll get back to normal, or do you think it'll be a long, slow process?
I've seen it sort of getting back to normal on the basis that people are just desperate to do it again. You know, just to get out on events or networking, because we've been cooped up for, you know, nearly 2 years. So I can see, I mean, whether that will then pan out and then people think, right, no, now I'll get back to normal. Now there's a good sort of hybrid of both. I've not done a networking event since lockdown was eased in person. I've just done them online, because I think I've got in a bit of a rut where it's just easy to do, and I can't be bothered sort of getting a suit on and getting in the car and going out and doing that. But they are still important to do for the reasons we mentioned before. So it's about having a good mix. But there's a lot of people I know are just sort of desperate to get out, so they just it's been a big sort of. I mean, we've got a couple of clients that are events management businesses that were obviously massively hit with what went on, and they've now been able to do their events, and they've had the biggest attendance ever. Right.
Well, yeah, I guess that
desperate to get it.
Yeah, so, just desperate to get
so
out.
Maybe there's a big influx now of everyone rushing out to do it, and then maybe it'll pan out, and then they'll go back to maybe this hybrid of doing combination of sort of, online and mix.
I've got another question here actually from Sophia, and she says, is the business plan any different if you're looking for investment compared with a bank?
Yeah, because a bank is just, I think I made the point before about bank, it's just interesting to know that they'll get the money back, and all they want to see is that the business will be able to afford the repayments, where an investor is looking for many more things. So, for example, they'll be looking at, well, if I put 500,000 into your business, when am I going to get that back, and what kind of multiple am I going to get back? So, they are in for the long term, but they're not sort of saying, well, can you pay me monthly back? The monthly pay, because the equity is just, it goes in, it's at their risk, but they want to know when potentially they'll be able to see some of that money and that investment back at more on a return. So, the business plan would show that, whereas a bank is not interested. They just want to see, can you afford the monthly payment of 500 quid a month? The investor is looking. And then in terms of, depending on what type of investor you're going for, the investor will want to see how they can add value. So rather than just the money, what value can they add? So, in terms of the pitch, it's kind of explaining to them, because one thing I do see, and I'll touch on it, is you see a lot of pitch decks which are just the same all the time, and no matter who they're pitching to. And it's one thing that I do say to clients is say, don't just use the same, tailor it to who you're pitching to. If you have to make amendments to it, because people just think, right, I've got it all done, it's all there, that's a sweet document, there you go, and it just goes out shotgun to everyone. But tailor it. So, an investor will be looking for different things. So finding out what that investor's interested in will sort of tell you how to structure your deck, because, like I say, they're looking at when they get the money back, what value they can add, in terms of if I put this money in the business, how is it going to grow the business? What is the impact of that money? Whereas the bank, go back to the point, they're not interested. They just want to know that they get the monthly payment. Whereas an investor, if they're putting in the money, they want to see, well, how does that impact? So how am I going to spend the money? Use of funds, where's it going to go? The bank will maybe ask that, but again, I'm going back to the point, they're just looking, can it afford it? Whereas an investor will want to say, well, okay, if I give you £500,000, how are you going to spend it, and what is that spend going to generate as a return? So there's things like that. So yeah, I'd say definitely it is a different sort of pitch than to a bank, but it's also very much needs to be tailored to who you're pitching to.
And is it fair to say that is it fair to say then as well that despite the digital age, is it fair to say that people still buy people?
Yeah. Yeah, 100%, 100%. It's, I've seen where there's been. It was interesting. A few years ago, there was a lady that we were working with who had an e-commerce fashion business. It was absolutely clueless at running a business. Didn't really understand how to, all the sort of the back end. She knew what she did for the sales, but the whole back of it, was clue. And you were like, if she doesn't do this right, she's going to lose a load of money. But the investor said, I really like her. I really like her. She's got great passion. I think if I could just help her focus on what she does best, and I can fill in, not me, but the investor, I can fill in and fill those gaps and do that. But I actually believe in her. So, he invested in her. And so, 100%, it's people. It's, even if you've got a brilliant idea and it can be a money maker, if the person thinks, oh, I can't work with this guy, he's not going to be brilliant, and I don't know what he's going to do. I mean, I remember one, going back to sort of, wasting money on things on Stripe, but one person was going for pitching, and I always remember what the investor was saying, because he came in and he'd come in like quite a fancy tailored suit. You could tell it was an expensive suit and a fancy watch, and come in quite an expensive car. And the guy who was investing was a wealthy man and had some, wealthy, fancy jewelry on and everything. And the guy just kept asking about him, and this investor was just saying. And then after, when we had a debrief, he said, he was interested in these little trinkets and everything. I think he's got a really good idea, but he just seemed so focused on, he's got a really good business because he was running. He was just looking for expansion money. But he just seemed so, he was more interested in what my watch was. He was more interested in that. And I could see he's got fancy. And I said, I just don't, I think it could, I probably would get a return money, but I couldn't work with him.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing, isn't it? Because you've got to, especially I think if you've made your money, and I guess a lot of these people they've sold their business, and and but they still need purpose in life, don't they? They might have 10 million in the bank, but they still need purpose. And of course, then it becomes it has to be fun, I guess, and of course it has to have a return, and and all the usual things that need to be in place for it to be a successful business. But if you're not getting on with the person and you're dreading every meeting, it's just going to be a nightmare, isn't it?
100%. So people, it definitely is. The person is a big part of that pitch or going out for investment.
I always think it's. I heard something said many years ago, and it stuck with me. And if you run a small businesses, you have to live in a little place just south of arrogance. And I kind of got that, because if you need to be seen and heard, and this is something I talk about a lot in my stuff. You have to be seen and heard to have a prayer of getting anywhere. And of course, we've got all that little stuff in our head, haven't we? About remember at school, I used to get the Philip would be a lot more successful at school if he stopped trying to show off to his friends. So you've got all that stuff, haven't you? And you going up in your head, which is like, and especially Brits, I think, and all the phobias that there are around glossophobia, for example. I don't know if you come across that, but glossophobia is the fear of public speaking.
Right.
Do you think that confidence in being able to speak on camera or speak in front of an audience, do you think it's a critical skill in the modern age?
I do. Yeah. I mean, there could be a lot of sort of, people can talk a good game, have the gift of the gab and have no substance. So there's that element of being able to sort of pick out that. And I think, if we're going back to investors, these people have made the money for some reason and they're pretty switched on. So they can sort of see through that bullshit quite quickly. But I think it isn't. I do believe so. I know it's not easy to do and people don't like doing it. And there is that, I didn't know it had a name, what you said, but there is that fear of it. But I think if you've got a bit, it's something you've got, it's not just selling it to investors, but in business, you've got to be loud. You've got to get above the noise because there's so many out there, and I think being able to articulate it well, to be able to have that confidence and do that, it's just part of it. And I know it is. I've got clients who are the same, who saying, you know, I've been asked to do this event and it'd be really good for my business, but I hate doing it and I feel really shy. And it's like, well, ultimately, if it's going to really benefit your business, you got to do it.
The interesting thing is
when some people don't find. I mean, I don't find it that difficult, but it's easier said when you don't. But I do think it is important because there is so much noise out there. There is.
Yeah, I think I saw some research once in America a few years back that said people are the number one biggest fear in this research that people came out with was speaking in front of in public in front of an audience. Number 2 was death. So, but I think it's a great. What I usually say to people is it's quite an advantage because so many people are so fearful of it, they will avoid it at all costs.
Yeah.
So on the basis that we all need that little bit extra to stand out or to be heard over everything else, as you suggested, if you can overcome it, it makes a big difference. It's like live streaming. People think that everybody's live streaming now because they see a few live streams popping up. But in the greater scheme of things of businesses and business people, it's minuscule the number of people who are doing it. Because of course anything can happen. But I guess maybe you're just like me, because when I suggested it, you went, yeah, let's do that, you know. So I guess you're quite cool with it, and I can tell.
Yeah, I played in a band, so I was kind of used to in front of people.
You're not going to reach out now, are you, and get a bloody guitar out and start?
No, I played drums, so it was easy. It was easy for me because you sit at the back and everyone would just hear you but won't see you. Yeah.
What sort of music are you into then?
Well, yeah, it's like rock and roll music, rock music. So I played drums in rock bands, and so I said it's a bit easier sitting behind the drums. I didn't need to stand up front, but you know, he did the interviews and did all that sort of stuff, and so yeah. But there's ways to help. I mean, one thing I did, you know, from my own personal. So when we're doing the account, you know, like looking at marketing for the accountancy business online, because before the pandemic, I didn't do any marketing. I didn't need to because you had a good network. You met people. I was in the city centre of Manchester in Spinningfields, and you know, you just got referrals, and you were with people in terms of the entrepreneurial spark hubs and WeWork where we were based, and you know, you didn't need to do any marketing. But when the pandemic hit and you couldn't meet anyone, then you were like, actually, new business has really slowed down. So I've got to do some stuff online. So I've been learning sort of the online stuff. But one of the marketing people that I've got was saying, you know, we're really good to do sort of video content. And I was like, I don't want to do it, because you see people do selfies and videos, and I'm like, I really don't want to do that. That's not me. That's not really. But then I was just doing posting and blogs and stuff, and not a lot gets, you know, because there is that noise. There is a lot on there and trying to get it. And otherwise, if you spend a fortune on sort of Google ads to get it higher ranked or whatever, you know, it's going to be difficult to do. So, you know, she was saying, you know, video works really well and doing it. And you did those, you know, I did some YouTube stuff a while ago, not YouTube, but I'd got a marketing agency doing videos, and they put them on YouTube, and they got really good. And then I got people sort of messaged me on LinkedIn saying, oh, I really missed your YouTube video and that, would you do some more? And so really, I didn't like doing it. I mean, the ones that I've done at the moment on YouTube, I hated doing that. I don't know why, because like I say, I'm not bothered about doing events and public speaking and stuff like that. It's just the videos I didn't really like doing. And so I thought, right, well, I've you know, got to do it. So we were speaking before, Rave Investors are doing some game and doing them, and now I don't mind it. I quite enjoy doing them. And the social media lady who deals with our account was saying that you know they'll do really well and they'll get more engagement and all that. Not stuff I don't know all about that, but she said they'll work better. So you know, you kind of change, and you've got to overcome your dislikes and fears to do that if you have to do it. So yeah, so bit of the bullet, and we'll be releasing a lot more videos in the future.
Right, brilliant. Yeah, and okay, when we finish this live, which is for just about now, we're going to have a quick chat about the new camera that you've got, and I'll give you a couple of tips on that, so that might help as well.
Yeah.
Rob, that's the quickest hour, I think, of the last fortnight. That just went so quick. Thanks very much for joining me today. I really enjoyed it. And I'm sure there's lots of people have got a lot from that. I know I certainly have. And very best. And I'll be seeing you out on the road, as it were, in the not too distant future. So thanks for joining me today on Friday Live.
Thank you very much for asking me.
You're very welcome. Thanks, mate.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Okay, so that's it. Another Friday Live. Some great tips, insights, ideas, inspiration there from Rob. And I'll be seeing you again very soon on Friday Live. Maybe next Friday at 3 o'clock, because we have to be consistent with our live streaming. And that's one of the key messages I have to put out there, is about being consistent. So just listen to what Rob was saying there about overcome that little voice in your head that's saying, I don't want to be seen on camera. I hate the sound of my own voice, blah, 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 blah. But try and overcome it. And I can assure you that it's going to be worthwhile, because you will get more engagement, because people can buy into you if they can see and hear you way more than they're ever going to buy into if they just see pictures and text. But I would say that because I'm a big fan of the digital media revolution that we're all experiencing. So that's it for me from this week. All of you have a great weekend, and I'll catch you again next week on Friday Live. Thank you.